Into the Guyanese Critic. I am here with the Vice President, Dr. BHARRAT JAGDEO, and we're going to be discussing issues affecting Guyanese. Fortunately, I've been afforded this opportunity now more than one time, whereas the new administration is being very open and very frank with Guyanese. This is another opportunity where I will be asking the Vice President the questions that the citizens have in their mind. This opportunity was afforded to me today. We are coming to you this evening from Freedom House, where although on a busy schedule, the Vice President finds the time to make sure party members and the operation of the party itself is still maintaining a certain standard. I want to thank you for having me again, Dr. JAGDEO.
You're welcome.
Recently, I had an interview with the Agriculture Minister, and I had to inform him, like the questions, the hard questions that people ask me to ask yourself and other ministers. They also tell me, shortcomings they're looking at, and they also talk about the satisfaction in certain areas. They're satisfied, 25,000.
May I just interrupt you, please? Let me get my coffee. The guy is waiting to bring my coffee.
Okay.
Yes, yes. Hand me that coffee there, please. Just need it after a long day. Right, thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
So, I can tell you, overwhelmingly, Guyanese, if they have not received some of the promises yet, they overwhelmingly are satisfied that there's a positive aura around the new administration's operations. I'm hoping with my work and others, the administration can keep on track and ensure that Guyana will benefit. Let's get straight into it, Vice President. There was a short period of time afforded the government to create a budget. There is even more a short period of time to deal with the issues and roll out that budget. Please tell me where that is. And
yes, that's a very important, and I'm glad that you raised that issue. As you're aware, the budget was only passed on the 30th of September. And so it meant that so far in the administration, we've only had 2 months, 60 days with an approved budget to implement projects. So we had a hectic period preparing a budget in a short time and getting it passed. And then even more hectic period in getting through the contracting procedures necessary to have projects and programs rolled out. Notwithstanding, we have been able to really get a significant number of projects started in almost every sector. Roads, D&I, in terms of additional benefits to people, the education and health sectors. So almost in every sector of the economy, and we're busy at work. We only have a month remaining before this budget expires, because the budget comes to an end at the end of the fiscal year, which is December 31st. So we are busy trying to get as many programs started and implemented. There are many things that people are seeing. I drove down to the street today, and notwithstanding COVID, I was coming here to Freedom House, had meetings here this afternoon, and the streets were packed. And you see the level of economic activities picking up back again. People are out shopping and working. And that was one of the biggest challenges for us. You recall that we recognized that the economy had been tanking under APNU because of the lack of initiatives to create jobs, etc. And whilst there was a deficit of job creation activities, people were losing from traditional activities employment because of the shrinkage in the bauxite industry, in the forestry sector, in agriculture, in sugar, in retail trade. Tens of thousands of people. We estimated over 30,000 people lost their job, maybe upwards of 40,000 when you look at the other sectors. So that was always a primary consideration of ours, to generate new jobs. And then the COVID hit, and that made matters even worse. And so we had to try to get the protocols in place to keep the infection rate in check, and to do the testing and address people who may fall sick. But at the same time, we had to, out of necessity, open up the economy. And it's a tough choice, but a necessary choice. And I dare say that we've been one of the more successful countries in addressing this. That a lot of people have gone back to earning a living, and we can't live in the shutdown world. And so I'm very pleased that that is happening, and government spending is helping through the budget, is helping to pump prime the economy. We're hoping now that the vaccine will come. I've seen like Pfizer got regulatory approval in the UK, they're already starting. Every single day we are working to ensure that as soon as these vaccines are available, or people have access to them too. And we believe that we'll turn the corner on this issue next year, but we have to work between now and then, all Guyanese, responsibly, to see that we act in a manner that doesn't promote the spreading of the coronavirus, but at the same time get economic activities going. So we have been doing that, spending the budget. There is one thing that we're discovering though, that is deeply troubling to the administration. As we roll out the advertisements for new contracts, etc., and the bids come in, we're finding some very strange things happening at the evaluation. That where we've had a couple of cases where evaluators have contacted people to say we can adjust the evaluation report if we get a bribe. We've had a few instances like those, and we're going to take a strong position on those people. The problem is that the people who they've contacted are people who are doing works, public works, and many of them are worried about giving their names, or publicly giving their names, or signing an affidavit so we can prosecute those people because they say they will be victimized. So we're trying to assure them that that will not happen.
Just for clarity, Vice President, this is an inherent corrupt practice we're talking about here.
It is. And so that is, we're discovering this, that it seems a group of evaluators, unfortunately we had to use some of the evaluators who were there before in the APNU period. We haven't been able to vet the new evaluators, etc. And some of them are doing this. It's criminal. But what we have found also is that even if you have good evaluators, the tender documents have all been changed under APNU. So normally you would have standard bidding documents. Standard bidding document for civil works, for consultancies, for other things. And they lay out a minimum set of criteria. Some are fatal and others are not so fatal. So for example, your NIS has to come in, you have to submit financials that the company is registered, etc., tax compliance, etc. So what has happened, it's a free-for-all. So agriculture has its own set of criteria now. Public works develop a new set. every ministry, and it lends the evaluators, put enormous subjective powers in the hands of the evaluators. So we have looked at some cases where, for big contracts, we have a couple of cases like a road contract in Region 5, where a company that has done a large amount of work before, they have a good track record, they got disqualified because they didn't submit the qualification of the foreman. In another case, the president told me, disqualification took place because they didn't submit the qualification of the mason. That's not fatal. You can easily collect that afterwards, but to justify awarding a contract for $20 million more on the basis of a man just didn't submit his foreman's qualification. And so this is it. So the evaluators can subjectively alter a lot of the evaluation to steer contracts by disqualifying many others to steer contracts in a particular direction. And it seems rotten to the core. In some of the regions, they're buying, I've seen in region 10 and 4, they're buying COVID-related supplies at 10 times the price of what they cost, and directly sourcing it from people, and some of these people came up under APNU or have close relationship. So all of this, we're gonna get tough. The president has already been looking into this matter. We're going back to drafting standard bidding documents so everybody sees what the standard bidding documents are. They're publicized. The evaluators have little room to tamper with the standard bidding documents. And if a ministry wants an exceptional criterion in their bidding documents, they have to seek permission to alter the standard bidding document from the National Tender Board. So then they can't do it in each ministry, prepare the documents to suit the persons or individual persons. And so we're moving back to that, and the president will address this matter soon in a consultation where we'll take the standard bidding documents to public consultations with consultant, contractors, etc. and then implement those. So that procurement beginning next year will go through a rigid transformation.
Just for clarity for the public understanding, Vice President, what you're discussing is the process to which public funds is dispensed to do work. All public funds, whether the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Agriculture, the roads and everything. So this goes to the core of accountability.
Purely. And corruption. That's where the corruption takes place. Because if at the evaluation stage, somebody gets, say, 3 persons worth of bid, and they make a recommendation to the cabinet for no objection, or to the national or the minister. What happens is that they may recommend you, right? Your name goes up, and they would say the 2 other bidders have been disqualified. Often, the policymakers don't have enough time to see why they were disqualified, because they don't have to sort through all the tender documents. So if you tamper with it at that level, by the time the recommendation comes to the policymakers, the inherent bias and the corruption is already in the document. And so it's easy for somebody to approve something on the basis, well, they've gone through a proper evaluation, proper tender process, etc. But you will have huge problems there. And so this is why we have to work backwards to deal with this issue. And APNU did this conveniently. I passed that Procurement Act. Prior to the Procurement Act passed, we had 2 sets of regulations, some from the 1950s and some from the 1920s. And then a series of Secretary to the Treasury letters that govern procurement. We passed a comprehensive procurement law, one of the most modern in the world, I dare say. We took the cabinet out of the award of contracts when I was president, and we gave the cabinet a no objection rule. The no objection rule can only be exercised by the cabinet. They have to say why they're withholding the objection. They have to write why, and they can't award the contract. They have to send it back to the tender board. Very few countries in the world have that. APNU changed that. You remember the Harbor Bridge. When Patterson took their feasibility study, they went out to tender. The Central Tender Board, the National Procurement Authority, said they should annul the bid. They annulled the bid. Then Patterson took an unsolicited offer, a proposal, to the cabinet. The cabinet approved it. Cabinet has no powers of approval of contracts, and they, under our existing laws, and then took it to the Harbor Bridge, and they spent in excess of what was even approved by cabinet. It's purely criminal. It's contrary to the law, and that is what happened across the government in terms of procurement. That is why they tampered with the standard bidding documents and created, every institution can create, and every little cubbyhole that you have in this country, APNU cubbyhole, could have created their own bidding documents to suit people, whoever they want to give the contract, and then a lot of it was single source, sole source. So this is a crucial issue and will affect not just implementation of projects, and you asked about our budget, but would affect the fairness of the bidding process. And we need to fix that people are fairly treated when they submit their bids. They're fairly treated. It goes to the heart of accountability, as you spoke of earlier. So I just wanted to flag that issue, but we're working very hard to get the budget implemented. And right now we're also preparing the budget for next year. Yesterday, I think the circular was sent out. I spoke with the Minister of Finance, Ashley Singh, and we cleared this circular, and we're looking at a timeline early next year for the new budget. So it means preparations have to be done in earnest and with great rapidity for us to meet that deadline. So parallel to implementation issues, we are dealing also with preparation of the new budget for the new year. And then also, a substantial amount of work on the big projects are going on. So it's been a really packed agenda for the government, apart from the visibility which people see, like people going out, etc. There's been in the engine room of the government, there's been a lot of work going on.
Vice President, you said some actions of former Minister Patterson were actually criminal. Is this administration looking at holding these politicians accountable for doing things like that?
Well, SOCU became part of the corruption too, and they were targeting political opponents. We made it clear that the SOCU that operates now has to follow the issue and the evidence. And we do have evidence that is clear as daylight. No matter what Nigel Yu says, he's the lawyer for some of these people, or Harman, who is a criminal himself, he tries to justify what happened. I've seen them saying, don't give back the lands that were sold through a open criminal process. Ashley Singh and Brassington, for example, got charged for selling some land to Eddie Boyer after they had gone through a public tender, advertising all the newspapers, receive a bid, analyze the bid, passed it through the privatization board, which is made up of people from the private sector as well as government. took it to the cabinet, got the cabinet approval for it, went through the whole process. These guys sold lands to people without any public process, called them in, didn't collect money for the land they sold, vested the land in these individuals, transferred the lands to them, collected money on the side, which is a money laundering offense. And then they're saying somehow this is not criminal. This is the worst sort of criminality. And they try to make it an ethnic issue. And it's not about James Bond or anybody about this is taking land from Afro-Guyanese. That's what they're saying. Because the people who are the beneficiaries of the land that James Bond transferred, the prime beneficiaries, one is a Chinese guy and the other is an Indo-Guyanese. Because they reap the most benefits. He got a sum of money, a large sum, but the lands are worth 10 times what he flipped it to them for. So they are the prime beneficiaries of it. So when we take those back, the people who will lose their money are these individuals. Not James Bond. James Bond may be convicted for doing the transaction. But the people who would lose all of their money, who we're taking back the assets from, one is a Chinese and another one is an Indo-Guyanese. And so they try to make it about ethnic. Ordinary Afro-Guyanese did not benefit from these transactions. And many people in that party leadership have been calling me, APNU, to say we didn't know about a lot of these things. We're shocked. You asked if President Granger knew about the lands and survey, the transfer, the sale of lands from lands and survey. He never in his instrument, the instrument that he gave to Trevor Ben, include the sale of land in that instrument. Because lands and survey, Trevor Ben had delegated responsibility. The president, who was the minister responsible, he controls the lands and survey. Never delegated, yet the guy sold land, and that's going to come out. So Patterson too. You asked me about the Patterson matter. So that matter had gone to Soku in the past, but the corrupt Soku in the past found nothing illegal about it. So the matter has been recommitted because it's a clear breach. A child can read the Procurement Act, and where the Procurement Act that I passed that took the cabinet out of awarding contract says no objection, will say, but how come this cabinet awarded a contract bypassing the tender process? That a child could understand that, and that it's illegal, much less Soku. So a lot that was a cover-up, and people will have to. We're not witch hunting anybody. We're interested in that. We're interested in moving the country forward, finding as many jobs for all of our people, even people who have been.
When you say all of our people, you mean Guyanese?
Guyanese.
Because Lawrence, when she says for our people, she means
no. Well, they're very different than Walter Lawrence. Every time you hear me say all of our people, I mean including those who vote for APNU. Those are our people. Those are my people, regardless of what. Because I'm Guyanese. I'm Guyanese, you know. So the thing is that this is important for us, and I know we haven't sent home thousands of people like ethnic cleansing. This stacked up the public sector. You have a ton of people who are not doing anything, and taxpayers are paying for them. That's less money to the pensioners. That's less money for public service, etc. People who are doing nothing, and yet we have had a soft touch to this issue. There's some people who are openly political that have gone off, and there are going to be a few people who are removed, and this shouldn't really not have been removed, right? And that is why the president had indicated that we will try to review. People must have a recourse back to us to say, you know, I've been unfairly treated here. And then we have a duty to make sure that you fix that. But it's not that we have to reform the system. You have a lot of useless people who they put in key positions. If we want to implement our agenda for transformation and job creation, we can't use those people. And secondly, a lot of political people who are trying to sabotage you every single day. And they know that once you're a politician, you have to move out of certain positions. Like Harman didn't even want to leave. These are people openly political who are on the list of candidates. So the thing is about in the public sector, we made it clear that we will try to minimize the termination, etc. of people, focus on, but a lot of agencies have to be restructured. For example, some people lost their jobs in the areas that I had to restructure, climate change and environment. But we did it because we only need 1/3 or 1/4 of the people to do the same work now. Not 4 times more than what we had before. 1/4 of those people, the same people, but some of them that you unpick from the area, you can get the same amount of work done that 4 times more did, or even more work in my view. So what do? I stay with all of them because you don't want to fire people, or you try to get an efficiently functioning department that minimizes the take on taxpayers. We had to save, by doing that, I've saved $800,000 a month. Now that is about nearly $10 million or so a year. 10 million because of rental. The 2 buildings, they were separate, and we terminated one rental and moved everybody into the office of the president from the environment department who was there. We can maximize the space of government. We don't need to spread out. That's $10 million of savings, leaving out the savings on unemployment costs, just on rental, that can go back in spending to our people. And you have hundreds of those, literally, hundreds of places where we're spending enormous amounts of money. So in the new budget, we have more time now to review all of these excesses and try to adjust them back, to take government back into an efficient, smaller capacity, but create more jobs and conditions for employment opportunity for all of our people in the private sector out there, because that's where, you know, the growth will take place in the economy. So coming back to your original thing, yes, we have to go after people like criminally where they've done at the senior level, not junior level. You know, you have to forego some of that, because if we go after every single person, you know, the man who stole 2 reams of paper or something like that, we can't really manage the country. So you have to select those where the most egregious breaches took place and deal with those people, so it sends a signal to policymakers in the future that they will be accountable for what they do in office. They'll be accountable, especially criminally accountable for what they do. And so we need to do that, and we need to restructure. I want to assure Guyanese we're not doing this in a vindictive manner, or it's now our turn to deal with people. We're just doing it because it has to be done, and with a view to making sure there are changes in the public sector, that we have an efficiently functioning organization.
Vice President, staying in the topic, what Guyanese citizens are now calling the ethnic song of the opposition. It seems they only come forward when there is an issue that can be created. A number of Haitians, I think 26 Haitians were ordered deported. Can you explain this administration stands in? Reason.
So, first of all, everything becomes ethnic issue for some people. And by the way, I saw the ERC is going to have some national conversation. And they have handpicked some of the most rabid racists to be presenters there, main presenters. It can never move forward the national conversation on ethnic issues in this country. When you look at the list of people that they have handpicked. And this ERC, in spite of us urging them over and over as opposition leader to take a stronger position against people who were spreading, we said on both sides, we don't care who they are. Anybody who spreads ethnic disharmony, the ERC should come down on their heads like a ton of brick. They did it in a partisan manner or didn't do anything at all. Sat on their asses for the last 5 years. And when people they could have done something because they're empowered by the Constitution and laws. The Constitution of Guyana. And that's what we passed. When I signed that into the new Constitution, the powers of the Ethnic Relations Commission are enormous. They can prohibit a political party from contesting elections. That is the kind of power they have if people were to use race as a mobilizing factor. They have enormous powers. Chose not to do anything. Now they're going to have on the 14th and 15th some national conversation. Where were they all along? In the 5 months period when people were aggressively spouting racism and trying to pull our country apart, they just disappeared off the landscape. And now it's an affront to all of us to choose individuals who people know are known here and for their very partisan view and to call them presenters. How can they lead national conversation? The national conversation must take place in the wards in our city and in the villages of this country. That's where, not to get a group of racists in a posh surrounding discussing this issue, when many of them are self-serving. Vincent Alexander, David Hines are going to be presenters. These are people who are biased to the core. Henry Jeffrey and the others arguing that, we should have never had democracy because of ethnic issues. So we would have never had a democratic government today if we listened to those people. And those are the people who are leading a national conversation. It's the ordinary people on the ground who, because of their courage, people of every race, on the ground, they avoided the provocation of these jaundiced leaders. They avoided the provocation throughout that period. And that is why our country today is stable and our people are living together, continue to live together as they have done for centuries. Well, and so the ERC now suddenly is popping up with these names. It almost made me vomit when I look at the list of presenters. Almost made me vomit because they can't move our country forward. That group. So you have a group, and Harman is going to be there too. You know, this guy who did the most to try to divide our people. So we saw the tragic situation with the Henry boys and the youngster from that settlement. How they tried to utilize it, make it a racial issue when it was a horrible criminal issue. Horrible criminal issue, and when we should just lock away for life the person who did that. Find him and lock him away. And they made it into a race issue. And now with this Haitian issue again. So let me tell you, I've seen some of the people from abroad now suddenly concerned and the red threads of this world. They were all along. You had some of the most egregious cases of racism in the last 5 years. Open cases. The ERC itself did a study and showed that Roxanne Myers, the ERC had investigating team, was hired again ahead of Vishnu Prasad when it should have never happened. The ERC report, they never did anything about that too. So these people didn't say a word. But what they are effectively supporting are not Haitians. They're supporting the smugglers and the traffickers of people. Because they stayed quiet when tens of thousands of Haitians were smuggled through Guyana. The fact is it's done by people sympathetic and close to APNU is the only reason they supported it. If this was happening in any part of the world, the same people who believe they're the conscience of Guyana, some of them from the middle class, they wouldn't have uttered a single word. Because when the UN report ever comes out and says that the UN definition is that migrant smuggling is a transnational crime, and you've had migrants smuggling through Guyana, nearly 100,000 of them going to the border. When that report comes out, they say the government has done nothing about it. Next thing the same APNU people and all of these talking will say the PPP is allowing this, but they stayed quiet when APNU allowed nearly 100,000 Haitians and other groups to be smuggled through Guyana. And they are being smuggled. This is organized transnational crime. Organized transnational crime. And so it leads back into senior people leadership of the PNC. The police have the report how it's orchestrated when the Haitians flying here, who they're met by. Felix's letter to the Commissioner of Police saying you must not investigate this matter, when the police was investigating it in the past. They used to meet them airside. One night the people smuggled through the country. It's a network here of criminals. And so the Haitians, or many of them, are victims too. So you have young children. Now we saw a mother, the Attorney General was saying to me, a mother who is supposed to be 18 years old and the kid's like 13. She must have had those kids when she was five years old. But those kids are being trafficked through to Guyana. We heard about people being sold in other countries en route to the US. So this is what they want. This is what they want. Now Haitians can come into Guyana if they stay in the hotels. All CARICOM nationals have this 6 months approval. You come in, once you present to the immigration officer your immigration form, you say where you're staying, the hotel, you get stamped in. And Haitians are eligible for that. But the ones who came in here recently gave the fake names of hotels that don't even exist in Guyana. So they lied on the immigration form. That's the first thing. And secondly, if they stay on in Guyana and then exit after like the immigrant visa, you get an automatic stay here, then that's fine. But they are going to leave. They're going to leave. And the moment these are released, if they're not deported, they will be trafficked into Brazil. They will be trafficked into Brazil. So who will answer for that? Not this group that is suddenly saying that it's racism. So they want us to turn a blind eye, allow a ring that smuggles people to operate. This could be for Cubans or anything, Indians, it doesn't matter who. Any ring that comes to operate in Guyana of that nature, it's organized crime, it's transnational crime. The fact that APNU did nothing about it can't be the standard we set. Because when the reports come out internationally and all the UN reports, then we are now in government, bear responsibility for this. And so this is what everything is about: race. The Eurasians are exploited. They have to pay money to be trafficked through Guyana. They can get an in-transit visa if they have Brazil is going to accept them. They could do that. They could apply for that. But they're being smuggled through the country. And all of those who are talking in the papers now, making it ethnic, they are supporting a smuggling ring in Guyana that they turn a blind eye to under APNO. They're supporting this. It's not about the race. This is about our country too.
Vice President, I think we have spoken enough in length about things that are actually holding back this country, but they need clarity for the citizens. Sure. It is going into the Christmas season, and I can tell you, because I ask on a nightly basis on my program, on a daily basis, about the 25,000, who received the 25,000. Sure. And people across the country are very satisfied. One of the biggest questions is when, I know Region 4 is last.
Region 4 got to start. We got to push them to start this next week. Next week, and we have to aim to complete it before the Christmas season. We might have to ramp up so people can get some money, and then to also the pink slips, the pink forms. Try to see how we can reach back to those individuals. So we're going to push for accelerated work to get Region 4, the money shared in Region 4.
I think it
takes a lot of work, to go out.
I realize the security, organize the money and everything.
And we started in the outer regions, and now we're here in Region 4.
So people can expect that for Christmas.
Yes. I'm hoping that they get. What's the day? Is it? It's the 4th. Yes, it should be before Christmas. Yeah.
All right. Vice President, I know you're busy, and I know you're doing party works today. Thank you for giving me this opportunity once again. I hope we can do this at least once a month to keep the Guyanese citizens aware of what's going on, how it's going on, because unfortunately, the last administration was a blank screen, and the citizens were unaware of what was going on in the country. It was a very dark place. Thank you once again.
No problem.